Call the meeting to order for APCD for March the 10th. And roll call.
Board Member Bennett. Here. Board Member Foy. Board Member Long.
Here.
Board Member Morgan.
Here.
Board Member Parks.
Here.
Board Member Pollock.
Present.
Board Member Sharkey.
Present.
Board Member Tucker. Board Member Zaragoza.
Present.
Board Member Ramirez.
Okay, we have a quorum. And let's pledge of allegiance. John, can you lead us? John Sharkey.
Ready, aye. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Okay, the item number 4, the minutes of the Air Pollution Control Board for Tuesday, Jan 13.
Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Item number 5, this agenda review and to consider and approve by the majority of board members. So any revisions to the board or none at all? Any board members? None? Okay, do we have a motion for?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I should give a report now on what we did up in Santa Barbara.
Let's go ahead and.
That'd be 7? Okay.
Move the agenda as it stands.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Public comments? I don't have any public comments.
Oh, there we go.
None at all?
Number 5.
My goodness, this is great. Number 7, board comments and comments by board members and on matters that are deemed appropriate to include in memorial adjustments and so forth. Adjournment, excuse me. Michael?
No.
No.
Okay. One of the things that we, Mike and I went up and saw the conference at the conference in Santa Barbara. Beautiful day. I mean, that was a coast day. I'll tell you, it was beautiful. But you come up and help me out. There's some difficulty in this because the one from San Luis Obispo had a long dissertation on different elements of what would you call it? Their plan for the future.
Yes, basically looking at climate change.
Yeah. And it unless you sit there for a long time and listen to this, you can get bored from some of it because some of it we don't agree with, we don't do. We're not going to do it. But that was the biggest part was his part that day. We also got caught up on the beach and the sand and what they're doing up there, and they've come to a little bit of a compromise with the park services on closing some areas and putting up some fencing and some hay bales. Yeah, hay bales, and some other areas. They still don't think it's working, but that's what Park and Rec, our state park service is going to do. Period. What else, Mike, am I missing?
We went over the toxics presentation I gave your board in essence in January on the new guidelines for health risk assessments.
Right.
Fantastic. Okay.
And he gave us a memo. He gave us an email. You saw that email where Los Angeles has actually gone down on their lung disease or lung problems and things. Because the question I brought up is, do we have anything to measure what these have done over the years? No. No, and they do all this stuff, but they didn't have anything to measure what effects it had.
No data for them.
No, but Mike came up with some data that showed that the lung problems have gone down significantly.
We received that email.
Yes. And actually on the Basin-Wide Control Council, I will be bringing those minutes to your board at our April meeting.
Yes.
They would have come today, but our board packet was already in progress when we met in Santa Barbara. So
they were putting together these programs and things to do, but they had no ways of measuring the results. And so I kept talking about it, and Mike came back with one of them, but there's others.
So you're going to bring information to us?
yes, it always comes to your board. But we have to wait until the minutes are approved by the Basin-Wide Control Council.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mike and Mike.
That's all.
Supervisor?
Yeah, I have a couple, but first I just wanted to ask, when you're talking about the hay bales and the parks, are you talking about San Luis Obispo and Pismo Beach, Arroyo Grande area, or?
No, we're
What's the hay
talking
bales?
about Pismo Beach, yes.
Okay.
Sand dunes.
Right, okay.
And
I
because
wasn't
they've
clear.
got sand blowing, but
Right.
that sand's been blowing there forever.
Right, I just was
Farmland's
wondering
all
what the
sand
hay
over
bales
there.
were about.
So, Anyway,
The two things I would like to bring to the board's attention is that the program where we were working with Santa Barbara County and reducing the ship emissions, that also helps lower the well kills, well, W-H-A-L-E, as they have had some significant reductions, and they have achieved 16 tons of nitrogen oxide emission reductions just over these 27 trips, and 500 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's nice to be a part of that, and hope that program continues. And I think from the achievements it will. So that's good to know. The other thing I just mentioned and discussed with Mr. Villegas was the also finding that new finding, I believe, is that ultrafine particles they have found actually go into the bloodstream and are looking at that being a cause for cardiovascular disease among women. I think they tested 100,000 women in California and found that it's something I don't know if we really are that focused on, but the ultrafine, not the PM. What was it? 12.
Yeah, actually, these particles right now, what we go after are the fine particles that are PM 2.5 and smaller. So this would be a subset of those, but substantially smaller. And this is really something for the epidemiologist to work out. Should there be a standard for these ultrafine particles? And if so, how do we go about measuring them, et cetera? So.
how you go about controlling them, too.
Well, and that would be where we probably step in and looking at environmental impact reports, for example, may have to start looking at the ultrafine particles too, as they have I think they have a very cause and effect relationship with heart disease.
Yes.
With what?
Heart disease, because it gets right into the bloodstream.
Goodness. Interesting. Well, thank you for that information. Any other board members? Okay, then our next item is the consent item review and approve, unless there's some items that we'd like to pull, but there's only one item number 9.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so item number 9, we have the consent item to approve and reappoint Stephen Wolfson to the...
We acted on that. That was consent.
Okay, so... Number 10, approve an authorization of air pollution control to execute an MOU and with the Air Resources Board regarding implementation and enforcement of regs to reduce methane emissions from municipal solid waste landfills.
Vice Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, I'm Mike Villegas. Just before I get started, I wanted you to know that we're working to balance your agendas between this board and the standing committee, trying to stay under an hour. And unfortunately, Doug Tucker called me during lunch, let me know he had a work emergency. So we're going to have a pretty full agenda for the standing committee come April. In response to AB 32, the Global Warming Solutions Act of California, the California Air Resources Board has adopted a regulation to reduce methane emissions from landfills. Methane is a greenhouse gas with a global warming potential 21 times higher than carbon dioxide. As you're aware, Ventura County is non-attainment for ozone, and we control reactive organic compounds. For landfills, we control them pursuant to our rule 74.17.1, dealing with the ROC emissions. We require controls, mostly combustion devices. They could either be a flare, an engine, or a turbine, to destroy the landfill gas. These are identical to the controls that ARB is going to mandate under their regulation. Further, we already provide inspections and do many of the work required to implement the CARB regulation. If we implement this regulation, it's going to minimize duplication of effort between our agency and the state and reduce regulatory costs. We're proposing to implement this regulation with ARB through an MOU between CARB and the district. I think it's just good government, and it sends the message that our agency and your board take seriously combating climate change, and further, when we're going to do that, we're going to do it in the most efficient manner possible. This proposal was discussed with both Waste Management and the Regional Sanitation District, and they have no concerns. Therefore, I'm recommending that you approve the MOU and authorize me to execute the agreement. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Any questions, Mike? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mike. I'm not going to read item number 11, so we're going to we need an approval here from the APC officer to execute a grant.
Yeah, Vice Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, Stan Cowan, Air Quality Engineer. In September of 2011, your board voted to approve a grant from the Energy Commission to do guidelines and planning along the Central Coast, including Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. So we've been doing this a long time, and this is another grant that would use DMV fees, which we are authorized to do so because this reduces motor vehicle emissions. This proposal is a grant for the Ventura County Community College District at Ventura College to install 2 Level 2 charging stations. And previously they had a grant from the Energy Commission directly just to install 2 stations at Moore Park College. So this is an additional project for them, and they've been quite active in promoting electric vehicles and also in sustainability issues. Each dual station is capable of charging 2 vehicles simultaneously, and the grant only applies for funding for equipment, and the site owner does the installation, operation, and maintenance of the equipment. In response to past board inquiries about who pays for the cost for charging, the EV stations are designed so that you have access from the driver either through a credit card or other device or a keypad, so that they have the ability to pay for the charging costs. In addition, there's a grant agreement between us, APCD, and the college district, and would request authorization for the APCO to sign that grant agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Sam? No. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move the approval.
Second.
The first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's approved. Okay, item number 12 is approval and authorization for the Air Pollution Control Officer to execute an identification agreement with NRG Center Oxnard LLC for the proposed Puente Power project located in Oxnard. Mike.
As you're probably aware, NRG is proposing to construct a natural gas-fired turbine-based power plant at the existing Mandalay generation site in Oxnard. This proposed plant would be in the capacity range of about 260 megawatts, and to give you a picture, the existing Mandalay plant's a 430 megawatt plant. In the siting of power plants, the California Energy Commission has the lead in permitting. Our role is to advise the Energy Commission on compliance with air quality regulations. We're required to conduct what is known as a determination of compliance review, which is identical to the review that we do when we issue an authority to construct. If NRG was to receive a license from the Energy Commission and they comply with all air quality regulations, we would be mandated to issue a permit to operate. Because the project is likely to be controversial, I could see a case where litigation could be filed over issuance of the permits. This could result in the district being named as a defendant in the litigation. To protect the district's financial resources in light of litigation, we're proposing to enter into an indemnification agreement with NRG. The proposed agreement requires NRG to indemnify and defend the district in the event there is a lawsuit challenging the issuance of our permit. NRG would be required to pay for the defense of the district, any damages, litigation costs, and attorney fees. NRG would have no obligation to pay damages, costs, or attorney fees in cases where the district committed fraud or misconduct. Because the proposed indemnification agreement does protect our financial resources and our NRG is willing to provide this protection for us, I'm recommending your board approve the agreement and authorize me to execute the agreement.
And Michael, this doesn't mean that we're approving the project. Oh, it's just an
No.
indemnification for
That's right.
for us, to be protected.
Yes. And one thing I think we should go into this one with our eyes wide open. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of concern in Oxnard about
That's
this
right.
one, so I'd say the chance of litigation is definitely reasonably high. Unlike the LNG proposal, where district permit was really kind of a gatekeeper for that project. And the fact that offsets were required for the LNG project really ended the project. I don't see this project having those type of issues. These projects have been sited in non-attainment areas in the San Joaquin Valley and in Carlsbad and San Diego County. So when you look at the two main requirements we're going to have, best available control technology, it's pretty well defined for these type of turbines. When you look at the offsets, they will have to provide them, but I believe that they are at a level which they're going to be able to acquire those credits. So I don't really see the air permit as being, like I said, a gatekeeper for this project. It's
So the
really-
NRG will sign that as agreement to identify the...
Yes,
Which is extremely important, you know.
I think it is.
Any other questions from the, Mr. Pollitt?
What concerns me is that if we approve this, then we're essentially receiving valuable consideration from the applicant for whom we need to issue the permits. And the perception could be that there was some quid pro quo here, that they're indemnifying us and therefore, wink, wink, we'll issue the permit, which I know isn't the case, but it gives that appearance.
I agree with you that there is that, but I think you need to consider that many planning agencies, such as Ventura County Planning, basically require that as part of issuance of the permit. There are other air districts that have indemnification rules on the books. Mm-hmm. We actually workshopped one, and we got a lot of resistance. But with our new counsel, Jeffrey Barnes, he wants us basically, he's advised me to proceed in that manner, basically getting a rule in place that for any project we're indemnified. And that'd be consistent with some other land use agencies and some other air districts.
So our obligation is what, Michael, after the...
Our obligation is to determine what is best available control technology, determine how many offsets are required for this plant, and the appropriate conditions to ensure compliance with all state, federal, and local air quality regulations. And then basically, our permit will become effective if the Energy Commission concurs and issues a license.
And it's important that Oxnard understand that we're not approving the project. That's
Absolutely.
all we're doing, you know, just protecting the APCD.
Right, protecting our agency.
Our agency, right. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions, Michael?
I like the idea that this will become a blanket policy with all, not just
That's right.
with the controversial ones necessarily. Is that what you're
Absolutely, and
indicating?
like I said, we workshopped this a few years back, and it really, we had a lot of resistance, and we ended up getting battled back. But I think we're definitely going to try again.
And this is not going to affect APCD in any way, whether to approve or not to approve the...
No.
Okay.
So, Mike, you say you workshopped it and the industry battled,
Oh yes.
saying they didn't want to.
Our large facilities in this county were, I think they were uncomfortable with the original language we prepared that was based on, I'm trying to remember, I think it was San Diego District's regulation. But our new council had some really good ideas on language that he wanted to propose, and I think that would, I provided him with all the history from the workshops, and I think we're going to move forward from there.
Yeah, we definitely just need that to be standard, so
That's right.
it doesn't appear to be a quid pro quo.
Absolutely.
The language looks good too. Compliments to the attorney.
Oh, any other questions of Michael here? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
The first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Okay, item 13, we have a special presentation here, 30-year Staff Service Award for Lyle Olson of the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District.
Yes.
30 years, my goodness, that's a long time.
Yes. This is a 30-year service award for Lyle Olson. Lyle is an air quality engineer in our compliance division, and he's responsible for the audits of the continuous emission monitoring systems. And these are the units that are on the largest facilities where we actually monitor their emissions real time. He also oversees source testing for engines, boilers, turbines, and power plants. He also investigates breakdown occurrences to determine if a variance, in essence, is recommended from our rules at the time. I'd also like to point out that Lyle really walks the air quality walk. He bikes to work nearly every day. He's a graduate of Oregon State University, where he received his degree in chemical engineering, and he began his APCD career with the Kern County APCD, where he worked for 4 years. In 1985, he started working for our district here, and he let me know one thing that was different. He really felt good working for a board that was serious about achieving air quality goals. He also let me know that he's considering retirement now that he's nearing 35 years in government air quality service. I want him to know that we're really going to miss his work, and I'd like to present him with a service award.
Congratulations. No picture. Congratulations, Lionel.
35 years and you get that.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much for your services, right? Thank you, thank you. And
Congratulations.
was anybody here on the board when he came in? Thank you again. And yes, he was. Okay, there you go.
Well, if you want to say anybody was here, elected when it came, yes.
Okay, so let me see. That's the last item, right?
Yes, and we'll be meeting April 14th. It'll be a fairly light agenda for the full board, but standing committee's going to have quite a bit on their plate.
Okay, so we're adjourned. Thank you.
By the way, it wasn't just that one crash. Okay, so how many crashes? Oh, yeah. How many more trains are going down than were before? Like 5,000.